Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. As I say at the top of usually every episode, I mention that the point of the show is to talk about everything from politics to the paranormal. That's a wide variety of subjects, of course. We don't always get to all of that. You can't physically do that, but for tonight's show, we're going to talk about both the paranormal, as it is called today, and, of course, politics, because recently there was a very important presidential debate. And I'm sorry, with due respect to the subject of UFOs, until aliens are landing on the White House lawn, I think a presidential debate, especially one with global consequences, whoever the winner of the Democratic nomination is, should that person become president, that's more important than aliens right now until the aliens officially land. That's my view. All right, so let's talk about the two debates that happened. Now, first of all, I want to start this by saying up front that I do not support either political party. That means I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a member of the Republican Party either. Unless my memory has failed me, I've never even voted Republican. Now, I admit that having experienced some history in my short life, I admire Ronald Reagan and the job he did as president. He ended the Cold War. Anything else he did, good or bad, well, it's kind of hard to offset. Winning the Cold War, ending the Cold War. Now, how do you top that? Well, it hasn't happened with any other president. Toppling Saddam Hussein is not the same thing. Not even on the same scale. And what I find disgusting today is when I talk to a lot of people who are younger than me, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I used to be the youngest, so-called smartest guy in the room. Now I'm the oldest guy, not necessarily the smartest. But anyway, it blows my mind that most people I talk to and interact with don't really know what the Cold War was about, can't really tell you about it, and certainly don't understand how they have benefited in their short lives from the fact that they didn't grow up a victim of the Cold War. Now, I'm not talking about duck and cover stupidity. That's nonsense that took place in the 1950s. I'm talking about the fact that just look at the economic impact. The United States, as a world's superpower, along with the former Soviet Union, they both were spending so much money that we went into debt off and on. Russia bankrupted its whole empire, including half of Europe, that is Central and Eastern Europe, which of course the West willingly gave to them for immoral reasons. That's another subject we can talk about on another show, because that can be defended with facts, because if the West stands for what it claims it does, what it fights wars to defend, freedom, liberty, democracy, why the hell did it fight to liberate Europe from Hitler and then give it to someone even worse named Joseph Stalin? And there are people so ignorant today who think Hitler was worse than Stalin. It's like the number of dead that both these men killed, and Stalin outnumbers Hitler by more than 2-1, doesn't matter. In fact, in Russia today, the young people, most Russians, laud Stalin as largely a hero. Even though every Russian alive today has at least one or more relatives who has been a victim of Stalin's tyranny. Go figure. Anyway, these people exist, and they vote, and it's scary. Now, we have a political election that's coming up in 2020 in the U.S., and of course, whoever is the president of the United States is the leader of the free world, for better or for worse, at least as of this broadcast. And right now, that's President Donald Trump. The Democrats hope it's going to be them, but to be blunt, they're very much in trouble, because they're offering you what I call up to a point so far. Let's call it a chicken in every pot, rainbows and unicorns, and some are just brain farts. It's really, they are doing everything to hand Donald Trump the election as an encore. I mean, the stupidest thing they did was run Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. They own that. I was just talking earlier today with my mother as we were walking around about what it must have been like to be around Hillary Clinton the first week after she found the news out that she lost. Oh, man, I would love to have been a fly on that wall. But anyway, the Democrats have, of course, around 24 so-called serious candidates running for president. They actually have, the last count I saw was close to 500 people running for president. That doesn't mean the Democratic Party itself is behind all these people. Anybody has the right to file the papers, pay the fee, whatever. Whether they make it, that's another story. But of those who are running, there's roughly 24. The names range from people that nobody knew until they announced they were a candidate to people that a lot of people wish weren't running. And then, of course, famous, well-known people like Joe Biden. So let's talk about the first debate and why it doesn't look good for, I'm sorry, the future of America. Oh boy, where to start? Well, let's start with the first debate. First of all, a lot of people didn't understand that the way the debate was organized was actually quite fair. Everyone drew essentially random lots, and so the people that appeared on the first night were chosen in that group, and then the people who appeared on the second night appeared in Group B, the second debate. More people watched the second debate than the first debate. That's understandable, because more of the Democratic stars, so to speak, were in the second night. The only big shot in the Democratic Party who was in the first debate was Elizabeth Warren. And, of course, she kicked butt because look at her competition. On the other hand, according to Drudge Report, Tulsi Gabbard won the debate by a margin of about 1/3. Okay, she had a very good line in there when she said that she was the only person who was qualified of anybody up there on stage to be Commander-in-Chief of the United States. Her point was she did 2 tours in Iraq. She's decorated. There's no question about her bravery, no question about her heroism, and she does possess, from firsthand experience, which these other people don't, come on, Cory Booker, get serious, what it's like to send men and women into war. It is a cliche of politicians to say the hardest decision that a president has to make is to send the brave men and women off to war. They say those words. Some presidents actually mean them at the time they say them. But the point is the same, and it must never be forgotten. War should not be your first option. It must be and only be fought when it is your only remaining option. Now, I know there are some peaceniks out there, self-proclaimed peaceniks. I have a much stronger term for them, which I won't share with you, but I think you understand where I'm going with it. These are people who say war is never justified under any circumstances. Doesn't matter what. And I've met a few of these people in my travels around the world in 27 countries. I remember, for example, being in Prague. There's this very wonderful woman who was a young girl, and she was like 19, just out of school. And she was a volunteer for, Amnesty. And she stopped me, and we started talking. And she wanted me to sign a petition to get the death penalty banned. And I said, I'm not going to sign it. And she starts to lecture me about how the death penalty is wrong. So I asked her my usual questions whenever I have this conversation with people, and excuse me if I'm repeating myself from other shows, but briefly what I said to her was, okay, I'm going to ask you two questions here. If Slobodan Milosevic, he was, arrested for genocide, was in prison. It was a big deal in the Czech Republic because, as it was explained to me when I first arrived in Prague, the Czech Republic had just joined NATO. Well, immediately they went to war in support of the United States in the Balkans against the former Yugoslavia and Slobodan Milosevic. Well, as one of my good friends at the newspaper The Prague Post explained to me, we don't appreciate joining NATO to be protected from Russia, to then have to attack our Slavic brothers. I'm like, okay, you got me there. I had just come from Boeing. I just left Boeing to join the newspaper, left the United States, moved to Europe. This was in February of 2000. My book, The Roswell UFO Crash, What They Don't Want You to Know, had just come out in paperback from Random House Doubleday Dell Books. It was updated to expose Colonel Philip Corso. It was the first book to do it. It remains largely the only one to do it with original research in it. Again, that's out there. You can't take that out of the history. It is a fact regardless of who the author is, and I happen to be that author. But this is all the stuff that was going on at that time. So when you send people off to war, you have to understand the consequences of what you're doing, and Tulsi Gabbard has that experience. The other candidates don't. And Elizabeth Warren, her star seems to be rising. Tulsi Gabbard got the national exposure that, in my opinion, she has long been overdue. I think personally that she would make a good vice president, at least. I'm not quite sure about president. I don't know enough about her, and it's too early. But I think she's qualified to have a more senior office in American politics. I'll just stick with that. And yes, I would support some sort of vice presidency depending on who the other candidate was, the president, because that's important. Now, let's switch to the second debate. What we have here on the second debate is a very different show. We have the stars of the party, minus Elizabeth Warren, in this second group. You had Joe Biden, the so-called leader, apparently, according to some polls and what I call propaganda, basically he's supposedly leading by 2 or 3 to 1 margin, and that just is not true. Now, after the commercial break here, we'll come back and dissect what happened in the second debate, because that really is the danger sign for the Democratic Party.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shamans worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Cal's Corner Radio, here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about, in the first segment, the Democratic debate before the primaries begin of the major candidates who are running in the Democratic ticket. All right, fine. That was Group A. Group B consists of the so-called stars, led by Joe Biden, former vice president under Barack Obama, of course. Now, let's start with Biden. Biden has a history, and this is not just my view, it's a fact. Many have commented on this. He's gaffe-prone. He screws up all the time, verbally and action-wise a lot of times. He has been on the wrong side of history a lot of times. If he had been commander-in-chief or even VP at times, the world would be very different today and not necessarily for the better. Now, people who support Biden, and they've told me this, have said, well, look at how visionary he was regarding Iraq. Well, he cast the vote to go to war. Okay, that's pretty visionary, right? He did along with everybody else because everyone was on board for that. You know, people forget that it was George Bush, along with the CIA, and of course, military-industrial complex didn't mind, let's be blunt, that the war started with Iraq because it's good for business, and it finishes some unfinished business. You know, it's a fact that Saddam Hussein, the moment he found out that George Bush did win the election, George W. Bush, Bush Jr., as he was known, he immediately knew his days were numbered. Okay, so Saddam admits under just talking to his interrogator that, yep, he did have weapons of mass destruction. He didn't have them ready to go like he could launch them like he did in the first Gulf War when he would launch Scud missiles against Israel. And then there was a race to take out the launchers before they could hide and be used again. Near the end of the war, they got to be successful. So what happened is they sold the war. They didn't have all the evidence. I know for a fact, having covered that issue, that there was evidence that the so-called source curveball, the German intelligence, their intelligence community told the CIA point blank, this guy is full of you-know-what. They even told him that the descriptions of the laboratories didn't match the satellite imagery. It could not be where he said that there was, where he said he was. There was a lot of stuff that just wasn't true. So as I'm working with this data in Prague, and I'm going through this, I'm thinking of, you know, why was this war started and all that? Okay, the idea was originally this. Dick Cheney wanted to not attack Saddam Hussein. He wanted to get rid of the Ayatollahs in Iran. So he argued to invade Iran. It was George Bush who said no, and his backers who won the vote that said, no, we need to get rid of Saddam, and it will scare the you-know-what out of Iran. We win either way, because if we invade Iran, then it'll scare the you-know-what out of Saddam and make him behave. Either way, we win. But Saddam was easier to beat. The country's a lot smaller. The population is many times smaller in Iraq versus Iran. And, of course, Iraq is a complete artificial creation. It is a modern invention. It didn't exist prior to the British inventing it. A British woman invented it. She drew these border lines roughly, calling it Iraq, uniting three distinct types of people: the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shias. The problem is the Sunnis and the Shias hate each other. Historically, they've been killing each other for over 1,400 years. That's why Saudi Wahhabia hates the Ayatollahs in Iran. They would kill each other if they were allowed to get away with it. Well, the scary thing is the technology has gone way beyond their wisdom, because Iran has these holidays every year. They call it Jerusalem Day, believe it or not, where they celebrate the destruction of Israel and the liberation of Jerusalem by the Muslims. And what they do is they say that we're going to drive you into the sea. And they actually have marches with Hamas and Hezbollah every year, and they give their Nazi salutes. And it's not a coincidence, because they believe that Hitler was right. In fact, the word Iran was really a Persian translation for Aryan, which came from the German Nordic mythology. And one of the reasons that the Shah of Iran was put into power by the CIA, and earlier his predecessor during the war, was because his brother, who was going to run the country, was a Nazi sympathizer. Hitler was going to have a foothold in Iran. And the reason the CIA, led by Kermit Roosevelt, who, of course, was related to the Roosevelts as in both presidents, again, small world, they, in the 1950s, with President Eisenhower, allowed the British to convince him to overthrow and put the Shah of Iran into power, because they hyped the evidence against the Soviets and the influence that Iran might become communist if we don't go ahead and, take it over and take it into our umbrella. It later backfired and is responsible for the problem of the rise of the Ayatollahs and the fall of the Shah. The U.S. owns that responsibility, because it was a wrong thing to do. We didn't give the Iranians the right to self-determination. We determined for them who their leader was. He was another despot. And then, of course, it led to a backlash of radical extremism, which the world has paid the price for ever since that stupidity came to a head. Now, why is this relevant to Joe Biden? Well, he proposes that Iraq be broken up into 3 separate countries: Kurdistan, I don't know what, he doesn't even have a name for it, where the Shias can have it, and then the Sunni part, the western part, that would be a really small part now, they can call themselves whatever. Well, that's not the way to solve this. You see, I don't even want to begin on how that's wrong, because that'll take the rest of the show. But this is how Biden would be foreign policy-wise. His history and track record has never matched reality. And then he's backed the wrong horses, including segregationists in the past. Now, the way Kamala Harris attacked him, she's another drama queen in herself. Let's switch to her, because the media was all gaga. The left-wing liberal media, that is, not the thinking media, sorry to say, over the way she attacked Biden. And she said, basically that it was wrong of him to back the segregationists the way he did. Biden defended himself and said he helped end segregation. He said that he twisted her words. Biden is right to a point, but also Biden, his thoughts at the time were pretty much mainstream with wrong parts of America at that time. It wasn't only Joe Biden. And what I find disingenuous of Kamala Harris is suddenly she's black. She's not black, folks. Look it up. First of all, she's half Indian. Now, I've been to India, duh, lived there for years, married an Indian woman, so, I kind of know Indian women. And she's half Indian, just ask her parents, and her father is from the Caribbean. He's not black. He's not African, but she's the symbol of black repression, oppression, and she says we need reparations, which of course she would benefit from because she's black, even though she's not black. It's ridiculous. This reminds me of the racists who say Obama was America's first black president. No, he wasn't. We haven't had a black president yet. We've had a half black and half white president named Barack Obama. He has a white mother. How can you say he's black? You can describe his skin that way. He may say he is because now you can claim you're anything, and if you're in California, you got to respect that. Remember, if I want to be transhuman, that means beyond human, folks. If you don't respect my wish on that day at that time when I want to be a transhuman, I can legally come after you, especially in California. And God knows what my gender will be tomorrow. That's up to me. And Nancy Pelosi is leading the charge, that's why I call them Dumbocrats, to amend the U.S. Civil Rights Act so that gender identity is as protected as your birth gender. So if you're born a man with a male sex organ and you want to call yourself a rainbow human who rides a unicorn, let's say there's a gender someone makes up like that, you can sue the you-know-what out of a company if they don't respect that. And how are they going to respect that? Is there a manual on how to respect a transhuman? No, there isn't. So this is going to be great for the lawyers and the ambulance chasers of this type of thing. It's, again, what's wrong with modern American society. Let's call it millennial madness, post-millennial madness, because it's going beyond the millennial generation. But the Democrats, they're not offering solutions. They're offering promises. They're saying, we're going to forgive all student debt. Well, how are you going to pay for that? Well, that detail seems to be missing. Bernie Sanders says we're going to raise everybody's taxes. Well, wait a minute. You've been bitching up to this point that Trump lowered the taxes for the rich and didn't give the average guy a break. And now you want to raise taxes on everybody? How about raising them back on the guys that Trump lowered them on because you said it was so evil and it didn't help anybody because trickle-down economics doesn't work? They're right about that, by the way. But even they managed to screw up a certain field goal. It's ridiculous. But that's the Democrats. They keep scoring field goals when they need touchdowns to win the White House. They are as weak as they were in the Civil War. And people forget that the Democrats started the KKK. They were pro-slavery. It was the Republicans that ended slavery. And while I'm not pushing Republicans on anybody, boy, have things become topsy-turvy, because modern history says just the opposite happened, even though real history proves it was the other way around. Okay, we'll come back to segment 3 here. We'll wrap this up, and then we'll switch to another subject.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome to the third segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. And we're talking about the presidential debate. Let's wind it down, but mention a few other points here. Now, if you look at the main candidates or the party overall, the Democrats we're talking about, there's a struggle as far as whether to be centrist or whether to go left or how far left. There's actually three factions. Nobody's looking to go right. This is the Democrats. Fine. This is their so-called lessons learned or reaction or what they think they need to do in response to Trump winning, Hillary losing, and so far, in my limited view of this, because it's just beginning, the real measure, the real quantifiable data, of course, is going to come in during the primaries and the caucuses. Then we'll be able to see things more clearly. There'll be fewer candidates and a lot more focus. But right now, it's a race to see how left they can go, while Biden is trying to pull people to be more center or centrist. Now, in my view, a centrist is not going to get the job done. Because, again, I understand that democracy, for it to succeed, there must be compromise. But you can't compromise to the point where you're just really surrendering. You can compromise to the point where you might as well not bother because the important stuff you've compromised too much on. Some issues that are really important are binary. They're black and white. You can't compromise on them. One example, people die, whether you like it or not. There's no compromise. If you live for even 1 second on this earth, you're going to die. It's a question of when. Who knows? You probably don't, but you're going to die. It's binary. Again, the most important things in life and the universe, it seems, from what we can observe, are binary. Now, having said that, is a centrist going to get it done? No. Is a centrist going to solve the deficit? No. He might lower it a bit, but does it need to be lowered or does it need to be solved? If it gets lowered, then there's going to be another generation of politicians who are used to deficit spending. Trump seems to think it's okay, even though he railed against it when he ran for president, just like he promised he'd never play golf because he was too busy. He criticized Obama for not only playing golf, but more than any president, although he does the same thing. But a key difference here is every time Trump plays golf, he makes millions of dollars because he plays golf at his resort. And while he gives the Secret Service a discount, which taxpayers are supposed to be grateful for, I guess, he's still enriching himself because the U.S. system doesn't allow him not to because it wasn't prepared, as visionary as it was historically, for a candidate like Trump. So what happens when Bill Gates runs for president or any other billionaire? Oh, boy, the fun's just beginning. And I'll tell you, if the Democrats keep pitching up losers, creaky old politicians like Hillary Clinton and, let's be honest, Biden, then a billionaire from California, some high-tech guru, is going to step in and essentially buy the election. And here's how they're going to do it. There is this thing called the MPV, and these are very important initials. It's called the National Popular Vote Initiative. And guess what, folks? It's led by California. Of course, Nancy Pelosi's right in there. Now, what has happened is the Democrats were so upset and such sore losers over the last election that instead of learning the lessons that they should have to make sure it doesn't happen again, they think they need to rig another election. Now, here's how they're going to do it. All they have to do is just take a pen and sign a piece of paper, and it's a done deal. Now, the U.S. system gets criticized at times for being an electoral college system. According to the experts, and we don't know for sure because there wasn't a recount, so as my friend Roy Neal points out, and he's right, we don't really know whether Hillary won most of the popular vote because there wasn't a recount to prove it. The first count indicates she did, so let's say she did. But she didn't. She's not in the White House because America doesn't work that way. because the founding fathers wanted to save the country from what they called the tyranny of the majority. If California switches to the popular vote, people who live in California and New York and Texas and Florida, that's it, they'll control the future of the country. Now, there's two ways to look at that, and I admit that I have had struggles my own self with it. Not that my view matters, but the way I see the issue is the same issue I hope that other people are struggling with. Who cares where somebody lives? If it's one country, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all, remember those words, Statue of Liberty, send us your poor, right? Blah, blah, blah. We're an immigrant nation. Well, okay, who cares where you live? If the majority of the people want something, isn't that the point of democracy? Well, yes, it is. But then you run the danger of becoming the old world Greece. In Greece, under their democracy, every year they would hold a vote in the city, whatever city or town, village, whatever. And they would choose by popular vote who would be kicked out of their city and never allowed to return. That's democracy. So you know there was corruption there. Now, that's one of the reasons Greece doesn't work that way today, and really other nations, it doesn't work. Now, I'm not saying that people who want to go with the popular vote believe in doing it that way. I'm not saying that at all. Again, you have to look at the issue. If you're one country, one nation under God, look at Canada. They've got, different provinces, right? Our equivalent would be roughly states. We've got 50 of them. Canada's huge. It's one country, one nation, just like America. But depending on where the population is, they control the direction of the country. So yeah, people have different views across the country. I've seen it everywhere in the world. I've seen them have different views from house to house, or even over a dinner table. That's life. It gets worse if it causes wars. Now, what do? Well, there are people who say, well, if I live in a state like New Jersey, I'll never have a say because there's not enough people here. So if I have an electoral college, I might be able to have a say. Look at the election of George Bush over Al Gore. According to the vote, Al Gore won the popular vote, but Bush won the White House. Now, how many electoral votes did Wyoming get? Well, it turned out that vote, I think it was 1 or 2, was it. That was the margin. God bless Dick Cheney, right, if you love Bush. So it made a difference. It made a difference this time because Trump shrewdly lined up all the blue wall states, which for decades had gone Democratic. Hillary took them for granted to the point where she didn't even bother campaigning in Wisconsin, okay? She didn't even show up, not even at all. She just couldn't be bothered. And all those 10 electoral votes went to Trump. And voters will tell you it's because she didn't seem to care. So it was a big you-know-what to her. So that's what happened. So, again, there's trade-offs on how to view this. Now, what they've done with the national popular vote is up to 15 states have signed a treaty among themselves. California is leading the charge. Nevada is the latest state to join this union. It's a union, it's a sub-union of the greater union, the union being the nation. These 15 states have agreed that no matter what the Electoral College says, if it's popular vote, they win it all. Period. So what they're doing is they're going against the Constitution because they think the Constitution, its present form, is not fair. And they know that they can't get 3/4 of the states to hold a convention to change the Constitution. The votes aren't there because the Democrats never complained about the electoral system until they started to lose. And the Republicans, they don't want to break it because they won, okay? So both sides have a vested interest here. Let's be blunt. That's the way things are. The Democrats want to forgive, again, all student debt, or at least up to $1.5 trillion of it. Fine. Who's going to pay for that? They're complaining about the debt. Well, what do you do when you take that money that's owed by private citizens And then the government has to forgive that debt. Who pays for that debt? Do we borrow more money from China, like Obama did, to solve the earlier financial crisis? Again, I don't think that either the parties, these are the Democrats or Republicans, are capable of solving America's problems. I have that view. I've held that view for years, ever since the end stretch of Clinton's term, because as far as I'm concerned, the parties have left the American people. They're beholden to vested interests. There are studies from Harvard and other prestigious universities that have proven that the United States is basically an oligarchy now, like Russia, not as extreme, but an oligarchy. And basically, if you've got the money, that's all that matters. And basically, when you have, 1% of the richest wealth, in the world controlling essentially most of the world's wealth, 1% controlling over half, it just doesn't work that way. It's not sustainable. More people are leaving California now than joining it, even if you include and double the number of illegal aliens that they know of. Again, people are leaving because they can't afford to live there anymore. It's become a state of the have and the have-nots. But the Democrats, with their super-duper majority now, where they don't even need any other party, hey, they're going to fix everything because what's their excuse now? They can't blame anybody because it's all them. And it's not going to get fixed. They just added 3 new taxes, and it's going to get worse. When they legalize pot, they are the worst in the nation to handle that initiative. Not only is it way 10 times more expensive over there, but they're losing money on selling marijuana. Oh, my God. They're that talented. Don't get me started. We'll come back after this break.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Christopher Fulton is a survivor of the national security state. All he wanted to do was preserve history when he acquired a Cartier watch from the estate of President Kennedy's personal secretary. But that simple act set off a terrible chain reaction. He was pursued by the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI, thrust into the middle of the U.S. government's Assassination Records Review Board, even monitored and pursued by the Russian government. All because that Cartier watch was the missing link of evidence, a timepiece worn by JFK that fateful day in Dallas, a link resulting in Christopher being incarcerated and attacked for 9 years years because he opened a hidden chapter in history. The intriguing journey outlined fully in Christopher Fulton's memoir, The Inheritance, is available now through TrineDay.com or Amazon.com. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination by Christopher and Michelle Fulton is a must-read, an incredible tale of how easily our own government can overrule justice. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Kal's Corner Radio on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff. I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, to wrap up, as I promised to do, the issue of the debates, the Democrats, Republicans, again, the short version of my view, and I can talk about this later, especially as the election evolves. I don't support either party. I've never been a my party right or wrong type person. I believe America's problems, and it's not just America's, there's a lot of countries that share the problems America has. Some problems are unique to America, I admit that, like the gun issue, okay? The point is I don't think these two parties are going to solve the problems. The reason why is because they caused the problems. There hasn't been any third party. You can't blame anybody but the Democrats or the Republicans or both. It's just a question of what issue, what year, and over, the details. They're both to blame. Either one failed to stop the other when they should have, or the other did the wrong thing. Pick your poison. And people will say, well, it wasn't Obama's fault, the Republicans were obstructionists. Yeah, they were. Do you expect them to cooperate? They don't agree with the ideology, right or wrong. When you don't agree, and the gap is so wide, what do you expect? So it was predictable that there would be polarization. I saw a lot of what I'll call reverse racism in the Obama campaign. People pretending not to be racists, but using and playing the race card at their convenience, because deep down they are racists, but not in the sense of how they label others as racist, but it's still racism. I remember even my dear friend Bill Marriott, Rob McConnell knows him. He said he voted for Obama. When Bill Marriott hosted my website, I slapped Obama all the time. It really bothered him because he couldn't really argue against it. I told him, fix anything, correct me. You got access, admin stuff, super admin, you set it up. Well, he never did. Okay, so what happened is when he took me to see Obama, he was shocked. And it just didn't, he didn't walk on water. And I told him he wasn't going to do that. And he said, that the relations with Russia had been reset. And there was Hillary, leading the charge on that. And mistranslated button aside, which the Czechs laughed at because they, of course, know Russian for obvious reasons. It was just a debacle. And I saw a castle full of Obama supporters. I was way outnumbered. And by the end of that rally, a lot of people left scratching their head because they knew better. They knew BS when they saw it, and that's exactly what Obama was spoon-feeding them. They knew darn well that relations with Russia were not going to be reset, and if they were really going to be reset, it wasn't going to be that fast. Obama wasn't Jesus Christ, contrary to what his followers may have equated him to. I saw those stupid paintings. And then Bill would say, don't you want to be part of history, electing the first black president? Right there I stopped him and said, he's half white. So no, I don't, and I don't care what color his skin is. That's genetics. Anything else is racism. Again, Bill didn't know what to say. Well, what could he say? I'm not criticizing him for that view. He didn't think it through. I surprised him because I'm kind of a blunt guy. That's why we're good friends, and he was best friend. He was also a blunt guy too. Very successful. Overachiever type. Again, legendary in the computer field, in Apple and Claris especially. Very good friend. So this is the type of thing that happened. Now, the Republicans are saying, it's Trump. Well, Trump's not really a Republican. He's an outsider. And it was Ted Cruz, who lost to him by a 2-1 margin, who was the best deal of roughly 24 clowns that the Republicans ran for president, okay? And they all lost. And Trump beat them. And the reason he beat him is because he wasn't one of them. So there's a message here that neither party really wants to face. The Republican Party puts up with Trump because they wouldn't be in power now if it weren't for Trump. So it's kind of tough love. But it doesn't mean it's like that, adage that just because someone calls you your brother doesn't mean he's really your brother. So what do? How do you solve this? Well, first of all, you've got to quit electing bozos into office who are not going to get the job done. And if that means you have to write somebody's name on the ballot who will get the job done, do it. And if somebody says you're weird or whatever for doing it, who cares? Lie to them if you have to and say, I voted for your guy. Doesn't matter. What matters is, what you really voted for and who ultimately counts those votes, right? So the problems are so bad that let's rattle them off. And I don't think any of these two parties who caused these problems are going to solve it. Homelessness, it's out of control, regardless of the reason. This anti-vaccine stupidity. I'm sorry, the government needs to step in and stop the spread of these diseases. Who cares if people believe in superstitious nonsense? In fact, I'd like to see them prosecuted and jailed just like a psychic fraud. Okay? Now, healthcare, practically the number one issue. America has never done healthcare right. These parties aren't going to do it right. They may improve it. And here's what the Republicans are proposing. They have actually said, reelect us, and we'll fix healthcare. We won't do it until you reelect us. Well, at that point, if you had any prayer of getting my vote, I'm going to make sure I vote your ass out of office. How dare you hold progress of the nation hostage depending on whether I reelect your smug whatever. I'm not going to do that. On principle, you're out of there. So that's my view. And I think most Americans, at least ones I talk to, and I think I know a few number of them, they agree with this. And what I see is that most Americans now, in record numbers, want a viable third party or something different than these two moronic parties that are polarizing people, dividing the nation, where people are just tuning out. And this is independent of fake news, anything the Russians are doing, real threats from the Chinese, real threats from Iran, real threats from terrorist groups. Remember, the leader of ISIS is still alive somewhere. Who knows where he's hiding? He knows where he is, obviously, but doesn't mean ISIS is dead. And let's say he dies tomorrow. Doesn't mean terrorism is over. Then there's the issue of the environment and pollution. It doesn't really matter whether global warming is happening or not. It's wrong to destroy the environment. That's common sense, okay? There's so many issues, and it's reached a point where we're out of excuses. But the politicians just keep lying. There's no other way to describe it. Do you think it's a coincidence that most members of Congress, we're talking Senate and the lower house, House of Representatives, do you think it's a coincidence that most of them who enter into office, if they're not already wealthy, and many of them are, leave office wealthy? Isn't that amazing? Imagine getting a job for as little as 2 years. Let's say you're a congressman, you serve 2 years and you don't get reelected. Boo-hoo. Well, you've got a pension for life. You don't have to play by the same rules and have the same healthcare system your constituents that you supposedly represent do, because you've got special privileges. You've even got a free gym. Okay, and you've got your own private stores and all that other stuff, just like the private commissars that the Communist Party had in Moscow during the Soviet Union times. You had special places for the elite. It doesn't matter what country is, the same principle here. It's wrong. I would propose something that I think most Americans support. The politicians must live by the same rules as the people they represent. And if they don't do their job, they don't get to serve their full term. They're out. They don't even get to vote themselves raises. That's self-serving. And they've already proposed doing that. The Democrats have said, we need another $5,000 a year because we don't make enough. Really, Nancy Pelosi needs a raise? Excuse me? How many millions is she worth? I think she's, other than John Kerry, is no longer there. Oh, Kerry is, of course, married to a billionaire twice. That's a coincidence, of course. Don't get me started on that. Anyway, the point is these parties are just the wrong solution for America, because look at all the problems that have been self-inflicted. That's a key difference here. In other words, if there's a problem Russia caused, then the issue is, how did America react to that? We know that the Barack Obama administration didn't react as they should have in response to Russia. They largely punted the issue and set things up to be handled or mishandled by Hillary Clinton. But, she didn't win. And then Donald Trump got caught up in a whole different thing. Fine, it happened. That's an outside threat. It becomes internal when the nation fails to do the right thing, to protect itself. And it still has not done that. Russia and other totalitarian dictatorships who masquerade themselves as democracies. China doesn't bother to do that. Russia does. They will always be more aggressive than a so-called genuine democracy, or at least one that's closer to a free democracy like the United States and Canada are. The enemies who don't respect human rights will always be more aggressive. Again, Russia doesn't change overnight. The Cold War may have ended officially, but the mafias and oligarchs and things continued. That's the way Russia runs. So both these parties are not the answer. You have to address the issues, and you have to elect candidates that are going to say, here's how to solve it, here's what we're going to do, and you have to hold the politicians accountable. It's not working in the current way. One immediate law I would pass, and it started out as a joke by a comedian, as I recall, but I think it's a good idea, is literally have official like a blazer when you're in government on the floor representing the people. Have stickers on there that represent your top 10 donors. So people know that when you're talking about oil drilling rights and you've got, BP Oil right there as your number one donor, they understand where you're coming from. That's about as transparent as you get. But I don't think we'll see it in my lifetime. But I think most people would want that. And that's what we want from government, accountability and what's right. Join me next week. We'll be back.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now to receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games,
No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand, live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.